been a mom for nearly 20 years, and honestly, friends, I've kind of done it all. Working full-time outside of the home, being a full-time stay-at-home mom, working from home, running our own business to ministry full-time, and all of the different pieces. And so I think when you stop and think about this, you go, wow, like, I would like to be at home. I want to be a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home wife. I really do see the impact that I could have with that availability of getting to be at home and to get to prioritize home. But can I afford it? How can I afford it? How does one get to stay at home full time? And I know for me, I always thought that that was something that you had to be a certain income level in order to afford such a luxury of that. But spoiler alert, that's not how it has to work, friends. And I'm going to share exactly how we've made it work for nearly the past 2 decades, and you can too. With Heavenly Minded Home, and welcome to today's video, because yes, we have a video that comes out each and every day here as we talk about all the homey things with an eternal perspective, living as followers of Christ here in this world and keeping our homes heavenly minded in all that we do. And so truly, I became a mom at 17 years old. On my 18th birthday, we moved into our first home, and I've kind of done a little bit of everything since then. Our oldest is 19, our youngest is 5. We homeschool, we're in ministry full time, but honestly, we've done a little bit of everything. I've worked outside of the home full time. I've had the corporate job, right? We've done the things. I've worked from home. I've done like a commuter type setup. I've been a complete stay-at-home mom that was unemployed. I have been a kind of side hustle type person. We've owned our own business. We're in ministry full time now. Kind of a little bit of everything here. And I think there's a few points to this of why it's important to get to prioritize the home, especially if you are a professing believer, and how do we do that? Can you afford to stay at home? Is this a desire that you really want to work towards and to figure out, and you're just afraid and you can't quite take the plunge and you're nervous about it? We're gonna cover all of that here today. Now, I'm just gonna start by saying that I believe anyone can afford to get to stay at home, to be a homemaker, to be a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife, regardless of your situation. Anyone can do this. And I say this that I genuinely did believe for the longest time that it was like a privilege, right? Like, you're so lucky to get to stay at home. It must be because, you know, you have so much money or whatever it is. And I am living proof that that is not the case whatsoever. And I'm going to share with you the how and the why and all of that. And then I just want to say that this is a Christian channel. I am a follower of Jesus, and we put everything through a biblical lens. And so if you are a professing believer, if you claim to be a Christian, then it is so important that we understand exactly what God's design and desire for our lives as women truly is. I share this in our biblical womanhood studies that we do. If you want to learn more, I will link it down below. We have so many other videos about the topic of being a homemaker and what scripture says about this. But we as women, so you profess to be a believer, you are a woman, okay? If you hit those 2 categories, you are called to prioritize your home. You are called to be a keeper at home, a homemaker. It's said in different ways depending on the translation, but the root is still the same. It means that as women, we understand that to follow Jesus and to be a woman, God's design for our lives is that we prioritize home. We know that home is where our first ministry is based. That's where everything centers back to. And no, that doesn't mean that a woman can never do anything else and you must only be at home and you can never do anything, have a job, serve anywhere, you just live chained to the kitchen. That's not what it means whatsoever. Anybody who says that is completely ignorant. That's not what it says. But it's where our priority is. It's where our focus is. And for some of us, Maybe in the season of life, you are able to kind of be pulled in a couple different directions. Maybe you really don't have a choice and you do have to be doing something outside of the home, and that's okay. It's not that we want to, beat anybody over the head and judge one another and be unkind because of that. But is our priority to be at home? Yes. And maybe you're juggling that with a couple different pieces, and I get it, it can be difficult. But if you are longing to be at home full time, or maybe even just at home more, and you're wondering how to sort this all out and how to do it, that's what we're gonna dig into. Because as Christians, we are called to prioritize home. And that can be really difficult to find a balance and to be able to do when we are outside of the home full time, when we are trying to balance way too many things on our plate. And so I think that this truly can be a help for any of us, regardless of what season of life we're in and wherever we ultimately end up. These tips here are going to help all of us across the board. So can you afford to stay at home? The first thing that I think you need to do, and we've had to go through this many times over the past 20 years, is to calculate how much you actually make, okay? I'm not saying how much are your paychecks that you're getting if you're already working outside of the home now. Calculate how much you actually make. So that's taking what you actually net, right? What is the actual amount that you bring in? But then you have to deduct the expenses that you incur because you work outside of the home. So that could be a second vehicle, that could be the insurance that goes along with it, that could be the gas that you spend going to work, that'd be clothing and different just items that you need. Maybe eating out at lunch or ending up eating out dinner because you're so tired after this. What are those fees, those costs that you have because your time is tied up with an employer? Okay, so you really sit down and look at that. Maybe it's childcare, maybe it's after school stuff, maybe it's things that you end up just spending money on for the kids to go and do so that way they can be occupied because you are busy and you are giving your time elsewhere. You really have to sit down and be honest about calculating out how much you actually make. I see so often people that go, oh, there's no way we could be a one income household. We just have too many expenses. We could never afford it. We have to have my income. I have found it quite interesting though, that when I've helped people through this in our own lives doing this time and time again, by the time we broke it down, we realized that how much we really make once you deduct all of that stuff out isn't quite as big as you may think it was. I will be completely transparent and say that in all of our working years, I have always made more money than my husband. It's kind of crazy. He's always worked far harder than I ever have, but for some reason I've always made more money than him. But even so, in many different seasons of life, we have still come to the same conclusion that I'm best useful at home. Me being at home and being there to support my husband, to be there for our children, to do what God designed me to do was always the best option. Even when it meant taking away my big paycheck, by the time we calculated out how much we were actually making once all of those expenses were paid and taken care of, the number's a lot smaller than you might think it is. All right, so you've looked at how much you actually make once all those expenses and all those other things come out of that paycheck, of that take home. You've got a different number now than you started with, right? The second thing you need to do after you do that is you really need to look at all of the expenses that you can cut out. Now, depending on your own personal situation, this is gonna look a little different. But first you can start looking at the things you can cut out, like maybe a second car. All of the expenses then that come from that second car. Maybe again, it's all of those times that you're eating out. It's all of those times that you're eating out either at work, maybe it's coffees you're getting, maybe it's just dinner, grabbing takeout for dinner, going out to a restaurant because you're tired and you're exhausted, you don't want to cook. I get it, okay? You can start looking at all of those expenses that you can be cutting out. Maybe it is clothing or just, all those things that we pick up right when we're working. Maybe it's all those things that you treat yourself to because, well, I'm making the money, so I spend a lot of money on these different things, right? You really can look into the heart issue of a lot of this. Where are you spending your money? Where is it all going? Does it actually need to go there? Maybe it is things like the childcare, after school stuff, things that you have the kids signed up and just honestly to keep them busy and doing stuff because you're busy and you're spread too thin with everything else that you're doing. We really start looking at this, and then we can even dig into what are all of the things that we're paying for and spending money on each month that are excess. We don't have to have them. Do you have to have all the streaming services? Do you have to have all the membership things? Do you have to spend all the money on A, B, C, D, and E, right? Really pull up your bank statement and start looking at this and going, what are the things here that we actually have to spend money on? And depending on how much you really want to respond to this and get to be staying at home as a wife, as a mom, in whatever season of life that you're in, get ruthless with it. I know we've done that. So I remember one time literally crying at the table and telling my husband how much I just longed to get to be at home, to be with our children, to just get to focus on that and pursue that and not be spread so thin. I hated being stuck in an office all day. I hated having to give my time away to an employer. I wanted my time to be my time, to be my time that I could pour in to my marriage, to my children, to our home, to our life. And so we got really ruthless with it. And we said, all right, we have to pay rent, we have to pay power and electric, and we have to pay for our car. One car, that's it. That's what we have to pay for, right? And then we really sat down and said, what things can we get rid of? What do we have to do to make this work? You can sit down and go through that process and really look and see, how big of a difference is it really? Because by the time you figure out how much you actually make, and then you cut out all the things that you don't have to have, like survival items, you're gonna come up with a much different number than you started off with. Now, this is where you really can make a difference. A godly woman at home being frugal can most always, I'm gonna leave it out there that maybe there's a rare chance that this couldn't happen, but I've never actually seen it, make up for a lack of income with what you can save by being home, available, and frugal. Friends, I say this because it is truly quite amazing the savings that you can bring in when you make every meal at home, right? You're there. You can actually dedicate that time to planning out your food and getting the things you need and finding the best deals and doing the things that can be much more frugal than maybe you're doing when you're stretched too thin, you're running in too many different directions, you're running out of time and doing different things like that. The difference when you can start actually taking the time to utilize thrift stores, to utilize secondhand and things like that, instead of just thinking that you have to buy this or you have to buy that and all these things are going to cost so much. I know some people, they budget out, I talk with friends about how much they budget out for things like clothing and different stuff like that. I'm like, wow, we're thrift store people. And so we get everything everybody needs for a fraction of that. And sure, it takes a little bit of my time, but it's just part of my routine of what we do that allows us to live with no real set income. Genuinely, you can watch this video up here if you're curious, but we haven't had a real paycheck in like 5 years now. When you start looking at the ways that you can be more frugal, maybe it's things that you can be doing with the kids instead of feeling like they have to be shuttled off to all the things and involved in all the activities because previously you haven't had the time before to dedicate to that. Maybe it's just ways that you can be there to support your husband and really lift him up in whatever it is that he's doing and what he's working to. When he has that support of you at home handling all of the things and kind of freeing him up and lifting him up into that, it really can make a huge difference. So you see how those things start to work together when you calculate out how much you actually make, you cut out all the things you can cut out, and then you look at how you can be more frugal. You can really whittle those things down into much smaller budgets than maybe you thought were possible. That really is something that I think a woman at home can be such a valuable asset for. It takes a little time, a little effort. The more you do it, the easier it becomes, the better at it you get. But it can be such a great tool to help you and to make it that you can afford to stay at home. Now, I know we've talked a lot about the financial side of things, which obviously, can you afford to stay at home? Kind of the core component there. But once you have your time back again, right? That's what a job is. It's exchanging our time for money, regardless. That's what it is. So when you get your time back, maybe it's you're home full-time, maybe it's part-time, maybe you're working on it, whatever. That really does open up so many opportunities, right? We've taken care of how much are you actually making, how much do you actually have to spend, how can you be more frugal, right? We've talked about those things, but now you have this time, you have this freedom. And I think it's why I love talking about biblical womanhood and being a homemaker so much, because it is true freedom for women. That's what it is, not the nonsense the world tells you. It's what it actually is. And so when all of a sudden you have this freedom, right? I'm home, my time is mine again. I'm here for my husband, I'm here for my children, I'm here for whomever it is that the Lord has in my life. I have this availability. You really can start to look at, how can I serve from home? Home is my first ministry. I'm here to prioritize home. That's what scripture says, right? That means that I have the time to meal plan and to make healthy and cost-effective meals and to be here for my kids and to be engaged in their lives. And whether you're homeschooling, or that's a whole nother topic we can get into, or whatever it is, right? Like, you start putting those pieces together. How can you serve from home? There are many ways, especially in this day and age, that we can bring in an income from the comfort of our own home. And I'm not saying start so many side hustles that you have less time than you had before, because I get it. I totally fell into that girl boss trap. And we left corporate world. We did all of that just to create our own business. And then I worked more as a business owner than I ever in my life. So don't fall into that trap. I'm not saying that. But when you have your time back again, you can start looking at ways and going, how can I make a couple bucks here and there? What are your gifts? What are your talents? What are you good at? Are you a great teacher, right? Is there something that you could teach to someone? I firmly believe that all of us are knowledgeable about something that we could teach to someone else. There's so many ways out there with the internet to make courses, to share on things like YouTube here. YouTube is a great way to start making some extra money. If you're expecting money quickly, that's not how it works. I have a whole series on how we started YouTube, why we do YouTube, how much we make, literally all of the details. I will link that playlist down below if you're interested. So don't expect to become a millionaire, because we're 5.5 years in and still waiting for that. But there are ways that you can do it. Little bits of things here. Maybe you're good at redoing furniture and you want to pick stuff up off of Craigslist and flip it. Maybe it's something that, you can do online part-time, or whatever it may be. There's so many different ways that we can serve right out of our homes and bring in a little extra money. Maybe it's not money you're bringing in, but you're able to raise an amazing vegetable garden, and there's a farmer in town who will swap you for, some beef or whatever, right? Like there's so many different ways that you really can get crafty. And I love that part of it, that kind of wheeling and dealing, kind of part of it, when you have that time and that freedom. And you really do look for those opportunities to say, can I make a couple bucks doing this? Could I trade this for that? Could I do this? Could I do that? Raising, different crops or animals, even in a small suburban yard, you can do so many different things. And again, it's that time, that availability. Maybe it's saying, things as simple. I know for me, I use, like Fetch and Rakuten and things like that, these apps that are so simple to use, and you get money back on them. I take a little bit of time up front to dedicate it to it. I'm talking like a little bit of time to dedicate to it. And I get money back. I'll link my stuff down below. You guys will get free cash when you guys sign up with the promo links. Like, there's so many different ways. YouTube will share with you 8 bazillion of them, because there is a ton of us on here talking about the same topic, and we're all saying, hey, these are ways you can make some extra money. Here's some ways that you can do that. Maybe you can do this. Maybe you can play with this a little bit. Maybe you can start a course. Maybe you can start a channel. You can do all of these different things, and you're going to start seeing those rewards coming in, that income coming simply from you having the free time, you having the availability, you not having to trade all of your time away to someone else. But friends, ultimately in all of this, right, there's some tips and tricks, things that you absolutely can do, things that I myself have done and continue to do as we live these things out, right, each and every day. But if you really want to respond to this calling, right, we can see biblically that we are called to be keepers at home. Again, not saying that that means you never can do anything else, but it means that your priority is to be at home. And there's something lovely about being home. There's something so amazing about being a homemaker, stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife, whatever season of life that you're in. The ministry there prioritizing your first ministry of home gives amazing blessing and reward. And it really is such a rich and deep, lovely life. But if you're going to do this, right, you're going to say, you know what? Yes, I am going to start prayerfully working in this direction, going through these steps, applying these things, and truly putting this together so that I can be in my first ministry, my home, as my priority. And that's when you're going to do this, you've got to just trust God. I know it can be so overwhelming and so difficult. I'm telling you, I've always made more money than my husband for whatever reason. So that means every time that we made a shift, either where I started working out of the home, I became a complete stay-at-home mom, we went off and started our own business, whatever thing it's been, whether it was part-time, full-time, whatever, every time we did this, it comes down to it where you've got to just trust God and say, Lord, I know this is where you desire me to be. And it's because it's what you've designed me to do. And I know that it can be scary when you're like, but what about the insurance? What about the money? What about the benefits? What about retirement? What about all of those things? And we did a Q&A talking about that. So if those are things you have questions about, we will link that right up here for you. But I get it. I get it can be scary. And if you have questions and more questions, things you'd like to see me answer, leave me a comment down below. Put a little coffee cup next to it. We do Q&As every Saturday. And if you put a little coffee cup, it tells us that you want to see your question answered in that. And I'm more than happy to share. I'm a real, raw, honest type person. So if you want to know, just ask and I'll share it with you. But I get it. I get that it can be scary. I get it can be overwhelming. And you're like, I don't even know. I'm just, You've got to let go. And you've got to let God work. This can be such an amazing time to really just grow you in your faith, to trust in the Lord to provide each and every day exactly what we need, as He promises us He will do. He's never let us down yet. And if you don't have it today, it's because you don't need it today. And that's a big lesson. All these heart issues we deal with as we step out in faith and we say, you know what? I know this is where God's calling me. I know this is where I need to be, where I need to focus, what I need to do. This time with my children is precious. You don't get it back. Being here for my husband is amazing. I love this. Having this ministry that I can really lift others up and serve them through my home is a wonderful, wonderful thing to get to do. It's a lovely life. And it's not just there for the rich. It's there for all of us who trust in the Lord and know that He will provide every day our daily bread. And so you can do all of the things, right? You can apply all of these, and I encourage you to do so because they really are helpful, right? As you really look at this and prayerfully work through this, but at the end of the day, you've got to trust the Lord. You've got to say, God, I am here to work as unto you. So I give it all to you. I'm going to respond to your word, and I know that you are going to lead us exactly where you desire us to be. Friends, I hope these things can be a help, at least to kind of start those wheels turning, really start these conversations between you and your spouse, you and your family, taking them to prayer and saying, how can we do this? I desire to prioritize my first ministry, my home, to be here, to have a closer relationship with the Lord as I have that time to really take my discipleship seriously, to be here for my husband, to be available for our children, to build up our home and make it a space that can truly serve. And if you guys have more questions, you want to know more, of course, you can go to our channel. We've literally put out I think we're at over 1,500 videos. So there's oodles of content and things if you want to go dig in a little bit deeper. But if you have a question, there's something you'd like to see or to ask, just leave me a comment down below. I'm always happy to share because I do genuinely believe that any of us can be homemakers. Any of us can afford to stay at home. It's going to look different in all different situations, but if I've been able to do it for the past nearly 5 years with no real paycheck coming in as we've been in ministry full time, I promise you, there is a way that the Lord will bless and open up those doors and grow your faith in the process. I'm so thankful to be able to prioritize my home. The deep inner change that it gave me in my life when I started to really understand this and live in this is something that I wish I could just scream from the rooftops, because it's been so amazing to see the Lord work when I truly do understand His design and desire for my life. Again, biblical womanhood, all of the things, they're all linked down there. And if there's anything that I'm missing, just leave me a comment and let me know. But I truly do hope that this can be something that encouraged and equipped you even a little bit today. So if you got even an ounce of encouragement, you guys want to give this a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. Of course, you can also share this with any friends, fellow mamas and sisters in Christ that you know that we're all trying to figure out the same thing, right? How do I get by in life doing all the things I have to do, but living a life that is lovely, that truly does honor the Lord? We're getting ready to do a study looking into this even more. Like I said, we'll throw a video up here. It's linked down below. I want this to be a space where we can be lifting one another up and truly just living the life that the Lord has absolutely designed for us. There is so much beauty in that, and who doesn't want to encourage one another in that, right? That's what I think anyways. So I'm gonna get back to my beautiful day at home with my family. Hopefully these things can be a help to you all, but let me leave you a little something else that I think you'll enjoy. Otherwise, right back here. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, friends.